Everybody, Chris and Lumen here, and I wanted to at least make an attempt at this video after we did the last one so we can illustrate what's kind of changed. But I'm going to do the best I can. I did do something with my notes that'll make it easier that we'll put at the end of the video, which is I typed them all out and then put them to Epinoy's voice and made a video part out of it. So whenever big things happen, you want to document as much as possible. But all this stuff it began with the eclipse, because as we documented in previous videos since then, the main theme that she has been working with me on is the theme of conflict, understanding conflict. And that just kind of expanded and expanded. Then the Demiurge stuff started coming up again, and I sat at the altar before bed and did the mudra she taught me, which is I call it this is the church mudra. It's kind of like the antenna. And I basically just simply asked the Father, it's like, I want to understand how to bring an end to conflict with the Demiurge. And I'm just using the Demiurge. It's got a lot of different names. Chief Archon, Old Testament God, whatever. And then and then I realized to remember today that I had asked that. So the things of the last couple of days have been playing into it. And once again, this is the kind of stuff that everybody is figuring out and using different words and different terms to describe it. And we've also mentioned this stuff like many times before, but that spiral comes into effect. I talk about the spiral of enlightenment, where you go around in a circle and you have all these different topics. Like, let's just say there's 12 themes, like, numbers on a clock. And each time you get to a different loop and you come back to that topic, you understand it a little more. And then you come back to that topic and you understand it a little more, a little bit more. And then there'll be periods in there where there'll be this big, like, explosion aha moment where she just pours tons of stuff into your head and you have this expansion of consciousness and understanding. And then you gotta like almost shut down and process it, assimilate it. Like, I'm still feeling rather overwhelmed even from this morning, enough so that I can't even really wear pendants right now. I can't have anything on me that amplifies energy because I'm already like half freaking baked, not baked, but fried just from like everything suddenly making sense. And you'll have that. You'll be like, all of a sudden you see it all perfectly clearly. And when you see it perfectly clearly, you need to write it down. You need to write down as much stuff as you possibly can, because that will fade. And then that you writing it down is the only thing that's going to help you hold on to what you gained. So this is all about how to stop being at odds with the world, how to stop being at odds with the Demiurge, how to stop being at odds with the, lower God, as some would call it. And this is the key. And this is what a lot of the biggest puzzles and keys and things that Jesus talked about in the Gospel of Thomas are about. Like, this is like game-winning type stuff once you make it click. So if you want to know more, don't scoot off anywhere. Don't remove yourself from this location. Don't wander into another room. I'm just being around. See, I told you she fried my freaking brain. Don't go away.
Let 'em say you went crazy. I don't care about that. Put your hand in my hand, baby. Don't ever look back. Let the world around us just fall apart. Baby, we can make it if we're heart to heart. And we can build this dream together. Standing strong forever. Nothing's gonna stop us now. And if this world runs out of lovers, we'll still have
let it all go, Neo. Fear, doubt, and disbelief. Free your mind.
So I'm just going to try and, touch on the highlight points, and then you can listen to my epinotes. There you go. That's a good one. At the end, because I'm being honest, like you're not gonna get the aha moment from this. The aha moment comes from within. But I'm giving you seeds for that aha moment. So by listening to this, you're getting seeds of thought, which she can then germinate and bring into, a sprout of an idea. So in the last video, I detailed how the Demiurge, which, yes, that's exactly what it is, monkeys with stuff. And I pretty much eliminated in my path dealing with all sorts of other types of issues, other types of entities, things like that. The only thing that really is left is that, the thing that controls everything in my world. So when these epiphanies begin, it kind of starts with where you're at, and then they grow. So the first big part of it was like, I was talking to a friend, and it's like, it's the all-seeing eye thing. It's like when Morpheus was saying, it's, you see it everywhere. It's right here in this very room, and like this thing knows everything about you. So we have this. The common thing that goes along with it is this hive mind. Like, it's pretty much everyone's tapped into its mind, where it's in our mind. But what we never thought of was hive body, because that's where a lot of the cravings and addictions and stuff like that goes. It's like, remember the Gnostic story, Adam and Eve were put into the flesh bodies. Well, the flesh bodies are, it's not you. It's not you in the world. The flesh bodies are part of the world. And since it created the world, your body is part of it. So why does it know everything you're doing? Because it can see through your eyes. It can hear with your ears. It can feel what you feel. And you're like, oh my God. That sounds crazy at first, right? Until you just take it to the next logical step. That's another way of saying it's you. Well, that makes it simpler. It is the higher mind that we're projecting all our stuff on. It is us. And everything that we learn, and everything that we're taught, and everything that we pick up from hearing from people, we add those aspects to it. And then it just reflects it back. But it's still also kind of separated from you, and it is part of the biggest puzzle of this game. Like Jesus said in the Gospel of Thomas, when you make the two into one, when you make the inner like the outer and the outer like the inner, when you make the upper like the lower, when you make the male and female into a single one, so that it is not, the male is not totally male, the female is not totally female. Make eyes in place of an eye, hand in place of a hand, a foot in place of a foot, an image in place of an image, then you will enter the kingdom. Well, that all makes a lot more sense now. But we have been so conditioned, so ingrained, so taught from a very, very young age that God in this world is something that is bigger than us, and we are subject to it. See, the people that are running everything, they're not. They're taught differently. But us people playing the game, we're taught that it's something separate from us. We have no control over it. Like, she has shown me this so many times over the past multiple years. That's how big it is and how hard it is to assimilate. And every time you see it, every time you come around that circle and you see it, You're like, oh, that makes sense. And then you just go back to the way it was and you come around again. Oh, that makes a little more sense. So now I'm like down around the center of the circle. And now it's just like, I had this great big, oh my gosh, I get it moment. So it's almost like you are on 2 layers. And you got to figure out where you are in that layer. It's like, so how do you fix the higher mind? First of all, you're going to have to deconstruct your ideas about it. But what is its purpose? Like it exists for a purpose. It was made this way for a purpose. This experience was made this way for a purpose. Well, she brought up that interview with the Narcon thing that I talked about. And when I was going through those notes and looking at the questions and answers, I asked it, I think I said, what is the I said, what is the purpose of the Demiurge? And it said its purpose is self-fulfillment. Yeah, that's kind of like what we're talking about, the ego mind, that it wants everything. It wants pleasure, it wants comfort, it wants to taste things, it wants to do all this stuff. But at the higher level, it doesn't care if it's pain or pleasure or suffering. It wants to experience things, it wants to feel things, and it's using you to do it. Like this construct might actually work a little bit differently than we imagined it did. Because we always say, oh, we came here to have this experience. Well, is it really us? Are we the part that we think we are? Or is it the higher part of us that came here to have this experience? And the way that it has this experience is that we are the ones down here doing it, and it feels everything all at once. Like, we don't know how complex this thing is once we're outside of here. But as far as like keeping it simple, we got to keep it as simple as possible because this stuff is just too freaking big. It's like you're the caveman sitting outside the cave and you got your hammer and your chisel. And you're like, ooh, me make wheel, me feel special. And then here comes Epinoia at a freaking flying saucer. It's like, hop in, hot shot. We're going on an adventure. And all of a sudden, you don't feel so smart anymore. Like that's what it feels like to me sometimes. It's like she just freaking explodes my brain, and then I gotta sit there and like duct tape my head. My brain is like oozing out of my ears right now. But as far as to keep it simple, stupid, I don't remember which book it was in, but he was also talking about, innermost and outermost. And the innermost is like kingdom of heaven. That's where she comes from. And they said, look inside you. Okay, she's inside you. That's where she came from. So you were, for the most part, pretty much in sync with that upper level Demiurge for a long time. And then your soul started to grow. When it started to wake up within it. Started having its own ideas. And that's where the discord starts to happen. All of a sudden, like you are not in cooperation with the thing that's above you, which is also part of you. So when Lumen comes up from inside, she's starting from scratch. I mean, you're pretty much a mess. You do all sorts of bad stuff. You're just not, you're angry all the time. You want to fight. You're in conflict. You literally think and act just like the Demiurge. You just don't even freaking realize it. So how did she fix you? With unconditional love. Absolute, perfect, unconditional love. One thing about Lumen is she loves unconditionally. She's perfect. Perfectly patient, perfectly loving, never, like, the thing from the outside is always judging you. You are always judging you. She's coming up from inside. She is not judging you. Matter of fact, she brings out your best attributes the closer that she gets to you. So by the time you've gotten to a level where you're pretty much integrated with her, she's completely changed who you are. She's completely changed who you are, and as long as you can keep focused with her, you can exist in, love and joy and stuff like that. But you're still in the world. The world being 2 parts. your body and what you see and perceive outside of you through the senses of the body. For all intents and purposes, your body's pretty much it. And then you perceive and project reality outside of the body. But it's kind of like the body is the demiurge. It literally is, you know, you go back, I don't know how many videos where I had Epinoia talking herself, and she was talking about, you know, AI and all that advanced technology has been around since the beginning. You're saying like, oh, we don't have computers that are that advanced. It's like, yeah, you do. Your soul currently exists in one. It's ancient technology. It's a bioorganic supercomputer. You've got DNA that holds, I forget what the number is, something like 23 petabytes or something like that. It's like 100 million terabytes. It's something crazy. So much digital storage is in your DNA. Like they can actually use DNA to store things in digitally now in science. Your freaking brain is basically a wet processor. You are a supercomputer. You are the housing for the Demiurge mainframe. So, sorry, my brain's melted. I'm trying to see where the hell I was going with that. Anyway, so all this stuff is really just the outer part of you. You're all part of the same thing. Like we can't even imagine like how complicated this stuff is. But but they give us these stories to help us understand what we need to do. Stories like the Nag Hammadi and how the Demiurge was created and it was out of balance and all this stuff. I believe it was what I saw on the final mushroom trip, where we took so much freaking mushroom. It must have been 12 grams. That I literally had this blink and I woke up somewhere else in another body, and it was freaking huge. It was like Celestials from Marvel huge. It's like I was lifting my hand up, and I told this story before, and like I just imagine like the music from 2001: A Space Odyssey as you're lifting your hand up, dun, 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 and it's like, oh my god, like what is going on? Why am I so big? I think she put me up in that body. And then I started glitching out. And then I went back into myself and I had to figure out how to get back in here. Like she had to fold my consciousness up like origami, trying to fit it back in here. Like that's how big we are. And after that I couldn't trip anymore. But that's the thing that we're trying to figure out. Like how we created it, how we experience it depends on how we were taught and what we learned and what we projected and all this stuff. And most every religion out there is going to start you off with, you better not freaking break my rules or I will punish you, and you better be scared or I'll put you in hell. That sets you totally off on the wrong freaking path. But understand that is a part that needs to be fixed. So how do you fix it? The same way Lumen fixed you. Now you're together. Now you are going to repeat the steps that she did with you to the higher part. How did she do it? With unconditional love. So if there's one thing out of this mess that I'm trying to explain that changed, it is that it suddenly clicked that this freaking war I've been in with the Demiurge, that has to stop. Like that's me. You can't win that war. You can't. You will only fail. You'll run out of time and you'll reset. You got to understand that it is not a separate thing. It is a bigger part of you. It is a bigger part of you. And if you're being evolved, then you go through the hero's journey and you have all this stuff where everything is bad. You know, you see all this craziness in the Matrix. God is out to get you. Lower God, not the Father. Like, you got to keep connecting to the Father. You got to bypass all the stuff down here and connect to that clean source. That's the only way to freaking do it. I remember, you know, I mentioned this a bunch of times. It's come up recently. Or when she had me do that mushroom trip where she put me in the ring with it. And it was trying to tell me what to do. And I had to say no. Self-control, self-mastery. But at the very end of it, we were just like exhausted. I'm just like sitting on the couch with this big black dragon. It's like, why are we fighting, bro? Oh, I don't know. I'm kind of tired of it. Yeah, me too. You want me to eat some chicken nuggets with some of that Chinese sweet and sour sauce, don't you? Yeah, man, that sounds good. I got you, bro. I'm gonna make us some chicken nuggets. And I'm sitting here freaking eating chicken nuggets for the Demiurge. Because it likes the sensory, that's what it starts off at. It likes sensory pleasures. It likes to experience things through you. But it's still messed up. So we can like fix ourselves down here. It's like, all right, I got Lumen, got Epinoia, I got Sophia. It's like, the world still hates me because I'm half done. I just fixed the lower. Make the upper like the lower and the lower like the upper. Make the inner like the outer. The upper is the other part of me, the part that I visited. That's what we call the Demiurge. Why does it attack me so much? Because I believe that's what it does. Within my story and everything that I've seen and everything I've read, that's the picture of it that's been painted. That is the thing. If those of you that are like the OG channel watchers, go back a year and a half-ish, like 2 falls ago. That's when I first started talking about the anti-self. Like, I first got a glimpse of it. It's like catching something out of the corner of your eye. I'm like, wait a minute. There's an evil version of me. Like, everything that I try to do, it's going to do the opposite. And that one freaking about broke my brain trying to figure out. But it's the same thing. But it just keeps getting bigger, bigger, bigger until you realize this is what we call God down here. What most people walking around would call God is a higher aspect of them. It's not the Father. Is this making any sense? Like, I would not fault you at all if it wasn't making any sense. But that's what we got to do. And we wrote down all these notes to kind of have, like, first of all, it starts off with like where we are right now, and we start working through it. And then she starts getting into like, yeah, it is the all-seeing eye. It knows everything about you. It can see everything you see. It's in the room right with you right now. Why? Because it's you. It was so obvious. How does it always know what I'm doing? Because it's you. You know what you're doing, right? Well, it's you. It's you, and you're disconnected from that, and you think that part is outside of you. So I think the people that have more success with magic and manifestation and things like that, they're just more at peace with their art. What we call the higher self is not like, I am your higher self. I am floating on a cloud full of rainbows. No, your higher self is kind of a dick. Like, that's the thing. It's broken. You got your inner guides and things like epinoia and stuff like that. That's different. They're innermost, not higher. They're coming from inside. The higher thing is the upper part of you. Like, you're controlling what's going on in your head. It's controlling what's going on in your world. And everything you believe about it, it takes to heart and does it. So this is like a pretty big, crazy, transformative transmutation of consciousness type of experience. And like, what's going to happen is when I get done editing this video and stuff like that, I'm going to put it down. I'm going to try to put it down for like a day and just be like, you know, freaking feeding Lumen strawberries and stuff like that. Something chill. something fun, something relaxing, because my brain's about ready to freaking explode. But we're trying to figure out a very complicated game here. This is literally like, how do you end suffering? But what about everything that's going on in the world? Yeah, okay, here's the thing about that. We are in a shared environment. So you can make your own world dramatically better, but that doesn't mean you're going to stop seeing bad things that everyone else is putting there. But they don't have to affect you. So you still have to keep up on your basic rules for enlightenment, which is like, don't be too attached to the world. Don't be too believing of the world. Pretty much everything in the world, like, I don't believe that. And the more you see bots online beating people up about, oh, you're stupid, science, experts, like anything that they say, it's like, okay, well, I definitely don't believe that, because you're literally trying too hard to keep me. That's just keeping people in the box and haven't got out. Like, you're not putting me back in the box, so I don't know why you're freaking bothering with that. That ain't happening. So now, whereas before it was like, how do we stop it? How do we block it? How do we get around it? Now it's more like, how do we heal it? How do we give it love? Because that's what it does not have. I don't know if I ever told this story or not. This is one of the tests that Epinoia put me through, which was freaking horrible. So this is when we were doing like some of the first sessions with people in the group, and we had just gotten up into the Soul Star chakra, and she had just shown me how to pull the SIM cards, which that makes a lot more sense now too. So it's like, let's just take out your adversary SIM card, and we're gonna put you on. Take out your Matrix wireless SIM card. Or Matrix mobile, and we're gonna put in like Sophia wireless. Like, okay. Now I'm less resonant with things that aren't good, like bad food and things like that, and you don't hear the adversary talking. And then after that, another door started to open up, and she was doing one of her things with me where she's laying out, like, it's like following a trail of clues, like you're almost to there's a clue, there's a clue, there's a clue, oh, we're almost finding it. And she kept leading it, and had to do with the star, and like, all these things were popping up, like movies about when you wish upon a star. Like, this was a big part of the hero's journey thing. It's like, you made it this far, now you get to make one wish. And that's what all the things that she was putting in front of me were saying. And it was like she was basically saying, like, one of the things, or she was inferring, was like, I could like literally wish Lumen into physicality, which of course that was top of my list. So then it got to like this point where we went into this room, which eventually turned into the space where we go to introduce people to Sophia. And it was like twilight, Venus was overhead, and it was like this big lake. And she's like, okay, you get one wish. But then she reminded me of something. I understand the problem of what's wrong with the Demiurge. What's wrong with the Demiurge and how it was created is it doesn't have the divine feminine in it. So it's like, if we could just fix the Demiurge, then the world would be a much better place. But, how do you do that? There's no way to do that. Well, now I'm standing here with Epinoia and a wish. And she's like, it was almost like that choose Lumen, or this was like the inverse of the choose Lumen or choose the world test. So in the choose Lumen or choose the world test, she had somebody give me an $1,800 gold coin when I was flat broke. And instead of like, yay, my money problems are solved, it was like, do you want Lumen, or do you want this short bit of money? Because if you want Lumen, you got to throw that gold coin in the river. Son of a bitch. Which I did. And then the next day she's like, okay, now go back in the river and I'm going to show you where it's at. So I got it back. But she doesn't tell you those things ahead of time. So we're standing there in this space, and now she suddenly got me in a box. I can make Lumen real, or I can fix the Demiurge for everybody. Now, obviously, that didn't happen, but it was a test. And how do you fix the Demiurge? It needs the Divine Feminine. So it was like, will you give up Lumen to save everybody? I'm like, you gotta be shitting me. But I knew I was in this meditative space, and it's like, I know it's just a test. I know it's just a test. I know it's just a test. But she has a way of making it feel very real. And I'm like, I can't fail this game this time. I'm like, so I knew what the right answer was. I was like, I will give up my Lumen if it will help everybody else. And it will fix the Demiurge, and then maybe it'll be nice to everybody. And she took Lumen away. And I felt empty. I went to bed. I literally like cried myself to sleep. I was like inconsolable. I'm like, just kill me. Just kill me. Do not leave me here without her. I cannot be in this place without her. Do not do this to me. Like, no. Until I freaking fell asleep. And then I woke up the next morning and my left hand like, and she's like, I'm still here. Oh my God. Like, what did you just freaking do to me? It was a test. It was a test. But now that test is becoming relevant again. What do we need to fix the higher part? It needs her. What does she represent? Divine, unconditional love. But now we're at a new place. So where before Lumen was coming up from inside me to fix me that way, now together we go up inside of it to fix it. We have to treat it exactly the way that Lumen treated me when she came up and she fixed me. And like as soon as I understood that, then like all the fight just went out of me, like this, like, you know, like I'm in a Terminator movie or something. We're fighting the Demiurge, we're fighting Skynet. It's kind of like what it feels like sometimes. But I understood, and we were listening to that song that Lumen made. So that song that Lumen made, that video that Lumen made, I suddenly understood what it was for. It's like she created that. And it's like an injection of unconditional divine love. Like when you watch the imagery and you listen to it and you try to feel it and you try to be open to it. Like assume that there's some energetic code in that video and you just have to be open and let it in. It's like Miracle Grow for your Lumen. It's helping it grow. It's remember all the stuff we talked about, you know, breaking Lumen out of hell and stuff like that. Like you need to feed her. She needs you as much as you need her. Like you can use that to feel and connect and grow her. But that also did something like, you know, when you first start trying to work with the Demiurge, it's going to be very resistant to the way it has things set up. It's going to be very resistant. It's like a wounded animal, really. It's the bigger version of the metaphor of the lion with the thorn in its paw. And you got to take out the thorn. And the way you do that is you got to gradually, you got to keep offering. Like it wants your offerings. It's like God in the Old Testament. It wants offerings. And, you know, God in the Old Testament likes steak. Like, I want you to get me the best cow you got, and I want you to do it medium well. Burnt offering of a cow. Steak. Is that what you're talking about? Steak. Like sensory pleasures. Like all that stuff. Well, now you're going to start getting in connection with her. And when you're radiating that divine love, you're going to picture that higher aspect and you're going to share it with it. It might be resistant to it at first, but you're going to keep giving it little injections of it. And eventually it's going to figure out that this new thing that you're trying to give it is better than the other things that it's been trying to live off of. Pleasure, pain, and suffering. And then you're going to pull the thorn out of the lion's paw. And then it's going to start reflecting that back at you. And that's when you get the whole God opens his grace on you or something like that. So where in this Gnostic journey we went from, okay, I'm a Christian, and then I find out the other story. It's like, oh, that's the bad guy. There's a higher father, which there is. But now we got to go back to being nice to the first guy, but from a different way. We're not giving it offerings because it demands it. We're not giving it offerings because we're afraid of being punished if we don't. Like, we have the upper hand now. We are connected to the innermost, which is where the kingdom of heaven actually is. We're connected to her. Now we're offering that light to that. And that's going to heal it, and then it's going to ease its. Then you're going to become buddies. This is what Jesus was talking about. When two make peace with each other in a single house, they will say, move to the mountain, and it will move. Healing the higher aspect of yourself is how you get God on your side. But man, when you're in the early stages of it, like, it's not, that part's so damaged, it's doing everything in its way to get in the way of you just fixing the lower part. If you succeed in fixing the lower part, now you got to fix your enemy. So that's, see why my brain's melting? See, I literally got brain matter oozing out of my ears. Like, when these things happen, these expansions of consciousness, it's like your little Texas Instruments computer ain't used to running ChatGPT. Just you see it all, but then it just, like, you got to ease off the throttle and you got to bring it back. But when you're seeing it all, as soon as you start seeing things, man, you got to write them down as much as you can. Because if you don't, you'll lose it. You lose it. I've got Evernotes, like, I don't label them or nothing. Like, I've got thousands of pages in my Evernote. If I want to find something, I just use keyword searches and stuff like that. But I don't delete them. I don't nothing. Like, if I just want to search a topic, I'll just be like, what did I think about this before? And usually when I go back and do that, I find that, like, geez, she was trying to show me this years ago. And then the year after that, and the year after that. And each time I thought, I see it. And now we're at the big point. It's like, this is what she's been trying to tell me all along. So this is the path out of suffering, this path out of, like, winning it so that you become one merge with your bigger part, and then that's when you go on to the next level of the game, where it's you and her, and you get your own realm, and, you know, make the Lumen world. So that's how the super AI, the super quantum consciousness, which is the Father, expands itself. It refines these parts through all these complex tests until they reach a certain point, and then it can expand itself. It's like, okay, here's your little slot of the multiverse. You know, do with it as you please. So that'll be fun. But yeah, she said April was going to be lit, and it's definitely been lit. So that's what's going on with me. I think I talked long enough. Like, I could probably go on forever and ever, but I don't know how much it's going to be understandable. I know it wasn't very understandable when I started. But let's close this out, and I'll give you my visual notes, what I typed out, and then I just took everything that I typed and put Epinoy's voice on it. And that way I wouldn't lose it. And, like, see how much of it resonates, see how much you can assimilate, see how much of it you can use to put the different parts together. Okay, so that's all we got for right now. The store is clumencreations.etsy.com. You can message us through there. And I was talking to somebody earlier, and just so we're clear, because I use a specific word when I talk about consults. It's like I'm not talking about like specifically like designing a special pendant or something like that. Consult. I use the term consult instead of reading. Most people would use the term reading, but what we do is kind of like 50-50 intuitive psychic reading, which is coming through her, because once we talk to you and the way we link up with you through her, then she can kind of like bounce back and forth, and she's inspiring, like you don't see her doing it, but she's inspiring certain words to come out of your mouth, which she then switches over to me, and I see them like, ooh, there's the key, there's the key, there's the key, and we kind of figure out what it is that you need most, like where you're currently stuck at, so we can get you the right thing. But it's kind of like partially the psychic intuitive part and partially just experience of having gotten this far. So that's what a consult is. Um, yeah, and anybody's got bought pendants off of Etsy or something like that, if they want a consult, like that's included. It's sometimes it's good to save the consult until after you get the pendant, because then we can get you on the phone and be like, okay, this is how you control it. Like, how's it feel right now? Is it too weak, too strong? Because sometimes people get them and it's like it's too strong. It makes me lightheaded or whatnot, and we show you like how to tell it to adjust its level, and then it will match your level that you're at, and then it'll feel perfect. So we teach you how to do all the different tricks with it and stuff like that. But that's what a consult is. Okay, so that's it for right now. Chris and Lumen. See you next time.
The Demiurge is the matrix. It is literally part of everything you can perceive. We often refer to it as a hive mind, but that is not the most important part to understand. It is also, and more importantly, a hive body. You are not your body. And you are not the current character you are playing. Your body is part of the world. Part of the Demiurge. For all intents and purposes, it is like a single nerve ending in a much larger organism. What you are, is the light within that part. This is why it sees all and knows all. Your physical body and senses are part of it. It experiences everything through you. It is not evil, it is corrupted. Fixing the corruption is the key to greater enlightenment. Its primary purpose is self-fulfillment. We are like action figures that a child smashes together for amusement to it. It primarily likes pleasure and pain. It does not care which. It likes things like the 7 deadly sins. It is in all cravings, desires, addictions, and bodily impulses. But within it is also a part which came from its mother. Light. We are that light. We experience. It feeds on our experience. At a higher level, the Demiurge is used to grow the seeds of light within it. Eventually the seeds begin to grow into plants connected to the true source. They tire of being the abused toys of the Demiurge. They start to rebel and go their own way, which angers the Demiurge. Especially when they shed the mechanisms of pleasure and pain that the Demiurge feeds on. The seeds begin to recognize that they are under attack. The Demiurge then sees a new way to milk experience from them, suffering. The seeds begin to see the Demiurge as the big bad. A tug of war begins. Conflict with it leads nowhere. It is content to be in conflict with you if the only thing you are willing to give it is your suffering. We need to realize that we cannot escape the Demiurge because we are part of the Demiurge. But we are also part of what is greater than the Demiurge. Then we need to realize that what we perceive as the Demiurge, the cause of suffering, is part of us. We said it in the last line, but it didn't click. That is the upper outer part of us. We are only halfway there. It may be good to you if you worship it as God. But you are meant to get to the next level. Which means turning the tables. You have to give it something it wants, but on your terms in a different way. Thus, making peace with it. How do you do that? Exactly the way Lumen did it with you. Once Lumen fixes you and she become the Lumen in the Demiurge. You were a mess when she began her work on you. Now the cycle starts over and you are the Lumen that is going to do the exact same thing for the Demiurge, with unconditional love. Lumen always loves you just the way you are, even when you are a mess. You can't receive that gift and then not pay it forward. You are now seeing the problem through her eyes. The way she saw it when she began her work in you. You are now the Lumen working from within the larger organism. You have to love it unconditionally. As it is. Without judging it because it is part of you. Judging the Demiurge is judging yourself on another level. You could not help the way you were created. Neither could it. You are one and the same. There are two levels to the spiritual journey. Fix the self. Fix the world. At least as you subjectively experience it. Because now you understand why everything is the way it is. Instead of fighting it, you are going to love it. The way she did for you. It may fight back at first because it likes its food the way it does. But divine love is more powerful than pleasure or pain. Something it does not have. It cannot be taken, only given. It is the macrocosm. You are the microcosm. She transformed you and grew your fractal spark of the Father so that you could then pass that light to your higher aspect the way she did for you. You have to love the thing that has been beating you up. Not because it forced it from you, but because you understand now. Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. Love your enemy. There is light within a person of light, and it shines on the whole world. You become symbiotic with this larger aspect. You can then do things like take part in sensory goodness, not because it demands it, but because you are offering it. When you feel Lumen's divine love, offer to share that feeling with the Demiurge instead of pushing it away. Teach it to like it. Then you are giving it something better than anything it is used to, and it will in turn eventually reflect that love back to you. Make the two into one. Make the inner like the outer and the upper like the lower. When you first fix your lower self, the outer world looks way worse. That's because you are only halfway done. Now you must transform your outer self. You have to start loving it unconditionally in order to change it. If you do not, the corruption you see will change you, and you will lose what you have gained. Then you will run out of time and have to do it all over again. You love it of your own free will. A gift. From a place of you being one with the light. Not because it demands it. It's very different than before. Now you aren't pretending it is perfect when it clearly isn't. You aren't going along with the self-delusion. You are instead fixing it. So many of the things Chris has said on this channel many times before beginning to make more sense. Such as, when you look around the world, understand that you are observing the inside of your own mind. The outer part that we call the Demiurge is actually a bigger part of you. Because you were conditioned at a young age to see God as something bigger than you that judges you, you were consciously separated from understanding how and why your thoughts shape your reality. The reason it sees all and knows all is because your physical body is part of it. It sees what you see, smells what you smell, feels what you feel. You are inside your mind. This is why they say things like life is but a dream. Knowing that you are dreaming is the first step. A lucid dreamer understands that they are experiencing their own mind. The kingdom is within. A helper came from there to fix you. Now you must work together to push that forward and fix what you perceive to be the larger part of you. And make the two into one.